What's up, everyone? This is The Voices in Hyperspace, a podcast where friends get together and talk about all things sci-fi. We are currently watching the hit 90s soap opera, Babylon 5. We are on Season 3, Episode 3, A Day in the Strife.
I'm Legendary Black Lion.
I'm Captain Real Asylum.
And this is Sunday.
Yes, we are taking a look as Season 3 continues to roll. What's really cool is they are not like taking the momentum of the last season and just running full steam ahead. There's a lot that they are like, hey, let's take a little bit of time. Let's slow things down because there's some very important stories to tell. Let's dig into the richness of the soil. And we are actually going to see a lot of different types of conflicts that are happening. We're seeing the fallout of the Centauri Narn War. And it's not just how the galaxy is dealing with it, but we're looking at how the Narn themselves are dealing with it. There are some things that come up that are very familiar. I wanted to maybe ask you questions about this part, Mel. The substance abuse of Dr. Franklin and what that could be linked to, because it's not just like an out of nowhere type of issue. It's like we're seeing this spiraling activity.
Right, because it's not like it's out of the blue. I like how there were like little hints of it before. Yeah. It's like, oh, I'll just take a stimulant, and then it became common for him to take stimulants, and now it's like, hey, dude, I see you have a problem. They progressed it very nicely. It also feels like a build from when his dad came over. He still has issues from. Even though he's a successful doctor and he's conciliated, whatever, with his father, a little bit, at least enough that they respect each other. But he still should be technically pretty traumatized. So him having a vice to do that with makes sense. And it being a vice to help him with his other vice, which is success in what he does.
Yes. So, which they haven't touched that in a while.
No, they haven't. I mean, it's been so heavy on the galactic politics.
Oh, yeah.
That this episode really gets back into building on the characters, especially with Dr. Franklin. We're building on that issue that one issue that he does have. Because otherwise, he's the best person in the galaxy.
Oh, yeah, true, right? It's a heavy burden that he carries. Speaking of other characters being developed pretty well, we see the continued complexity of Londo, where we'll talk about it a little bit more later, but in this episode there is an effort to point out how isolated he really is, but he's not making any positive efforts to remedy that. He's doing some specific things, and it's just like, yeah, of course you're going to be isolated. We see how that affects Veer and the way that Veer handles it. And the other character that I wanted to kind of hit on, and then we'll jump into the episode, was Captain Sheridan himself. Sheridan, while they have been showing his leadership skills, and it's been by the book, he slowly is turning into a person who has impeccable intuition. Of course, he's been asking all the right questions all season long, or all throughout season 2. But now he's starting to put his critical thinking to work. And it makes a lot of sense. He is proving himself as like, y'all need to listen to this dude. And the first hints of that come into play when we start the episode. We see that Sheridan and Ivanova are talking to the Transport Pilots Association. After the Centauri started shooting at the station, the Narn's transporting weapons, and then homeboy, the Mad Bomber, the Midnight Bomber who bombs at midnight, was blowing up shit. Babylon 5 was like, we should probably implement some rules to kind of figure this out before people die. And the people who are complaining about it are the transport pilots. I'm imagining they're like fulfilling orders, for merchants. They're trying to make money. And their whole thing is like, you're trampling over all of our freedoms for safety, which, while I say that is the theme of this episode.
Right.
Freedom versus safety, like which is better? And I like the way that they approached it.
Again, we see real life happening right now. Well, almost right now. We just had the strike with the trucks.
Oh yeah.
Recently. Yeah. Like,
We also had the
difference.
last year they had the rail workers strike as well. Yep. Oh yeah, and they're like, oh, you can't strike. You can't do that. You're gonna ruin the economy. And it's like, well, that's the purpose of striking, you idiot.
Right.
We need we need better safety. We need better equipment. We need to get paid. And stopping the economy is the only thing we can do to get attention. So
Right. You're not giving us what we need because of the economy, and then you're going to use that as an excuse for us to continue to benefit you.
all right, but during this meeting with the transport pilots, the guy basically is like, look, we got what we got while y'all sitting up there all high and mighty. Dude, he's grappling. I don't even know what that thing is. It looks like a pickaxe type of thing. Maybe a tool, because I'm like, what do you need a pickaxe? Space.
Weapon.
Yeah, I know, right? It's all you can find. And then Sheridan is like, all right, I got you. He pulls out his PPG and throws it and walks up to the guy and shoves it in his pocket. He's like, now you got the gun. And he takes away the melee weapon. It's like, and I got what I got. And homeboy was like, oh man, I was just playing, we just, look, we're just a little inconvenienced out here. Knowing that the guy didn't call Sheridan's bluff, everybody backed down. He was like, look, we're going to reconvene later. And it turns out that Sheridan, while he gave the guy the gun, stuffed it in his pocket, he pulled the energy cell out of it. So it's like, it kind of didn't matter, because if the guy tried to use the weapon, it wouldn't have worked. But it's like, that was kind of a really cool way that Sheridan, he actually defused that situation.
Like a soldier. That was not diplomatic at all.
I mean, no, it was not diplomatic. The way he took action was giving, quote unquote, the power to the guy complaining. Turns out the guy was like, didn't have the will to use it. And that's kind of what politics can be like sometimes. Seeing how it is election season and we got just a couple of days until that happens. There are a lot of people who complain, and their whole thing is, I just want to complain to complain. I'm not going to put any action behind my complaints. I'm not going to do anything to improve my situation. I'm just going to complain. And then when you give them the opportunity, like, okay, cool, let's change things. And they're like, oh man, never mind. My bad.
I had that discussion with someone who's like terrified of what's going to happen to the country. And then says, oh, I'm not voting. I don't vote. And I'm like, why are you scared?
Why are you scared?
Why? Stop watching the news then if you don't truly care.
Now, is it a principle that they're following to not vote, or they're just like, couldn't be bothered?
I think it's the couldn't be bothered thing.
See, all right. And that's the thing that frustrates me. Like,
yeah. And like, not be like, I don't want to be bothered with physically going to the polls. So I chose to do absentee.
This is where we get into kind of the politics of the Narn. There's a Narn that arrives. His name is Nafar, and he has this really cool bodyguard with him. And they are talking with Sheridan, and they're talking about how, like, yo, we need you to know that we got to replace Jakar. He's causing problems. He can't be on this station. So this is one Narn talking about another Narn. And what he's saying is, Jakar is using his influence to create an armed resistance on Centauri. And the resistance is causing problems. And the Nafar is like, we need everything to be calm. We need everything to be relaxed. Basically, we need to make the Centauri feel comfortable so they don't hurt us anymore. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry. The way that comes across in a familiar way, it makes me think of, like, let's say post-slavery or during Jim Crow. Like, while those rules were harming black people, there were black people that were like, no, we need to make white people feel comfortable, right? So we can one day be accepted as Americans. And it's wild because the oppressor is creating rules to harm you, not because you make them feel uncomfortable, because they think that you're inferior. They don't like you. Like, they're not going to like you.
He makes it extremely clear, Londo, when he's scolding Veer over how much more pressure they need to put on the Narn. And Veer is all like, but we've beat them. We've destroyed their planet. They have nothing. And he's like, they still have pride. So we've got to keep on. So 100 years from now, they still don't consider standing up against us.
Right. And this is like the internal conflict that they have. And again, I'm seeing it here in America. You have people, I'm only like, I can only speak for my Black experience. So people who don't share that experience, that's okay. I don't think I'm sharing anything crazy. If I am, you can call me out. It's cool. But there are a lot of Black people who are anti-Black. And their whole thing is like, you need to be respectable. You need to adhere to these rules, which they exhibit white supremacy, right? And it's like, if you play your cards right, you will be accepted by white supremacists.
Which that never happened. Like, we've seen it with that girl's name who I can't remember.
Candace Owens?
Yeah. I don't know why I can't remember her name, because I don't want to.
It's she's very forgettable. She's forgettable, except for every 4 years she pops up with some nonsense. It's like, wait a minute, you still got a job? I don't think she actually has she's working for somebody, but she's doing something. It's weird.
She's an influencer. She just...
Oh, okay, that's what she is.
Crap.
Okay.
Yeah, I found that out. She's just an influencer.
Well, she got fired by those... She got fired by that conservative station.
Yeah, she had... Yeah, but like... The bottom line was that she was like social media. She had her own like thing going with social media, just being outspoken and getting. That's pretty much how she made her money. And then eventually it grew, but then that doesn't last because it happens to a lot of them. The fresh and fit guy, they got laughed at and cussed out because he was trying to be in one of their groups. But like we see this, we've seen it. We've seen these people try to suck up to white supremacy, and they don't even realize that it's not working for you.
Yeah, and so Sheridan refuses to relinquish Jakar, and Nafar has to leave. We're going to come back to them in a moment. The next part, we have a very interesting conversation with Garibaldi and Franklin. This is the start of their story for this episode. I like the way that they put this together because, like, we've seen the way that Franklin behaves in the past, right? He's always pushing himself. The way I look at it is this is him poorly coping with burnout. He puts a lot of pressure on himself. It's basically like a dinner or whatever with him and Garibaldi, which Garibaldi is an asshole. If you think about it. He is. Garibaldi is an apolitical dumb guy who works at an embassy. He flippantly insults one of the people at the embassy and he's wondering what he did wrong. And it's like, why do you have a job, Garibaldi? I don't think your alcohol is the problem. I think you being an asshole is a problem, and then the alcohol is one more of your problems.
And the alcohol probably just amplifies it.
Right, yeah.
Because some people can drink and be friendly.
Not Garibaldi.
No, apparently he's acting the wrong way with alcohol. And that's actually his problem, not the alcohol. Kind of like, guns are the problem. It's the people who have the guns, even though I have a different actual opinion about that. But,
yeah, we'll probably brush on that topic later. Well, we'll see how this episode goes, because that's still kind of the issue. Like, without us even, like, we just slipped completely away from the potential for weapons to get onto the station, which they actually do in this episode. Mm-hmm. But we'll talk about it. I don't know. There's something about people smuggling swords and knives on the station. And nobody stops them at all.
It's a cultural weapon.
Like, a dude died.
Right.
But basically, Franklin, he gets called into med lab. They're like, look, nobody else can do it. Franklin's like, how long is the shift? It's like, for 2 hours, and then so-and-so is going to come. And Franklin's like, well, I've been working for 20 hours straight with no break. Which, why is he at the bar? He should have clocked out, went to bed, did the power nap. I'm not saying that this is healthy, But I know that some doctors, when they're working these long hours, they'll just find a closet, snooze, chill out, refresh, reset, get back to work. I don't think it's a healthy thing to do, but I mean, you tell me, you're a doctor, you've worked 20 hours, you're tired, you're going to go nearly pass out at the bar with your asshole friend.
I don't know. This is a whole nother subject, but like if we had free education, we could have more doctors, and doctors wouldn't have to work so long hours because we would have more doctors to replace them for those hours, and we could have fresh doctors. But no.
And I don't disagree with that point at all, but the intent is to abuse doctors in that way, regardless if there's enough of them or not, because of the way the hours are structured in med school. They, push and push and push them to like the brink of, what is it when you're sleep deprived, and get them to function, without enough of anything. And there's just a lack of concern for the human condition at all, for the doctor themselves, for the people that they're caring for, and whether it is even safe for us to believe that the care that is going to be offered is adequate.
Yeah.
It's a really, messed up system that is, not in favor of anybody but the dollar sign.
Yeah, that's really abusive.
Yeah.
Because the doctors don't benefit from it, obviously. The people who are supposed to benefit from it, the patients don't benefit from it. And then if the doctors get used to the idea of working under those conditions, they're still human. They're going to make mistakes, which means people have to go back in for new procedures and they can get charged for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It makes me think, too, like a lot of doctors eventually shift to private practices and they just kind of like run their own schedules, which I would encourage that. But, a lot of people rely on the hospital. And in this case, they have no choice. They're in med lab. Ooh, I wonder what Babylon 5 would be if there were private practices around the station. That would be interesting.
Do that already? I mean, minus the fact that he's obviously burnt out because he's doing both.
He doesn't have a private practice. He has kind of like a charity service. Yeah, like it was illegal. It is. Is that still happening?
The doctor that he went and was talking all crazy to, that had that alien technology that was actually helping people, if they had private practices, then she would have been able to help people without nobody giving her so much smoke.
Yeah. All right. So this is where we're also dealing with Franklin's overall burnout, because we've seen him throughout the series. He's complaining about how long he's worked. We don't see what he does about it until now, where he runs to the bathroom, shoots up some stims, and comes back and he's all like super refreshed and hyped, and he wants to go flirt with that lady and dance with her. It's a stark contrast to the way he started out the scene, because one, he looked like he hated being there, which, I mean, to be fair, Garibaldi does make people feel like that. Then, afterwards, he looks like he is in an environment that he just loves being in. It made me think, if they didn't say stims, I would have been like, he went and snorted some cocaine. Right?
He used stims before.
Yeah, he has used stims.
In season 1 and 2. It made sense then because he was like in the middle of working and he wanted to finish that job and not go to sleep.
Yeah.
But this time it's like, oh, I'm just going to use it because I'm going to go dance with this girl.
Right. Yeah, his friend, the Markhead, was the one that's watched him do stims. It was like, that's not good for you. And he's like, shut up, I know what I'm doing. Yeah.
I mean, high five to Garibaldi to be able to have a difficult conversation, though. That is a really hard thing to bring up.
All these having difficult conversations because he don't care. You get to see the usefulness of not giving a fuck when it comes to bringing up issues that need to be brought up. Because sometimes we care too much to bring up these issues. And there's a good time, a good place and a bad place for certain things. And right now, the way he does not care, it's good.
So CNC picks up a probe, and it is this really cool shaped thing that approaches the station, and they're trying to figure out what the heck is this? The probe basically transmit some data, and Corwin, who I think he's the blonde, square-jawed guy on the station, on the CNC, who is rightfully so extremely afraid of Ivanova. Yeah.
I just remembered that episode with the reporter, and she stood in the background. Never gets mad.
No one ever gets mad. Why would you even ask? Everyone loves everyone around here. And he's like sweating. What we find out about the probe is that it is from an advanced society. And the probe is promising all of this advanced scientific information. But what you got to do is answer all these questions. There's like 600 questions. And it's various questions on science and math and all these different subjects. It offers like cures and all the different advances. But if you get it wrong, like if you transmit your message, you get it wrong, then a 500,000 megaton explosion will go off. And, oh yeah, by the way, this is happening in 24 hours. So now we're under a clock. We have this giant bomb outside the station ready to blow up. And so the senior staff is put into kind of a scramble to like get these questions answered. And let's just kind of review. Ivanova, Sheridan, they're trying to deal with the transport pilots and what's going on with the Narn and what's going on with Franklin. Of course, there's the backdrop of whatever's happening with the Centauri. And I don't even know if too many people there, except for the senior staff, know that they're about to die. While that's going on, we see Londo. Poor Londo. He tries to talk to Delenn. Delenn is very guarded against him, which, I mean, one, don't nobody likes Londo. And two, Delenn got a lot of secrets. Londo is essentially her enemy. And Londo is like, I feel like I lost a friend. We used to be such good friends. And Delenn is like,
gaslighting hard. Because at first he was like, Garibaldi's his only friend, but now that he needs to suck up to Delenn, I thought we were friends. I'm like, I thought you said Garibaldi was your only friend.
And Delenn, she's like, you lost more than a friend. You lost so much more. And he's like, I don't care about all that. Since I got you here, Delenn, can you do me a favor?
I'm going to suck up to you because I want something.
Yeah. And he's trying to arrange for Veer to be sent to the Centauri embassy on Minbar. And Delenn is like, well, why? And he's like, look, I like Veer, but he's not made off of this type of work. We need to keep him away from harm. If you take him, he'll be a good assistant or whatever. He's not even going to spy on you guys. And Delenn is like, all right, I guess that'll be cool.
Because he stayed on the fence, which is
right.
what I don't like about him. Like, you clearly see that things are wrong, and you will kind of say something sometime, but you don't like actually be doing shit that's helpful. Right. You might as well be shipped off because you are serving no purpose here.
He's the conscience of Londo. And Londo is like, you don't serve a purpose. Yeah.
Because even though Londo has a conscience, Lear is his external conscience, but he's not going to listen to anybody other than his ego. Well, his higher ego.
He listens to, what's that guy's name?
Lord Rifa.
The external ego, because he speaks to his external ego. Veer is speaking is another form of ego. But basically, anything that seems to be getting in the way of him doing, having his control, he has to get rid of. He tried to get rid of Morgan, the second to last episode, and now he's getting rid of Veer.
Yep.
So it's like, oh, you're annoying me, and I have the power to get rid of you, so I'm gonna get rid of you. And I mean, I kind of been in Veer's position. It's like, I've said and told people that this is wrong. I see where other people agreed with me that have more power than me, and I spoke to them, and it's still ignored, and the harm is still done despite anything I say or do. And like, it's really frustrating to know that you only have a certain place in society and you try to overstep it in order to say what's right, and you still get ignored. So from his position, I think other than, just straight up assassinating Londo, he's done what he can. And I think assassinating Londo would contradict his stance on not harming people, even though it would do less harm for him to be dead.
We'll see this a couple of times. Delenn is not going to face Londo. She don't like that dude.
I hear what you're saying, Mel, and it is an issue when you're in a position where you don't have the power or authority to make a difference or a change. I feel like Veer is in a better position where there are options that he is not taking. Like when he was in the elevator with Jakar, aligning himself there. When he is in conversations with Delenn's assistant, aligning himself there, where you could be offering, insight information or a heads up that something's going to happen. I mean, something. He doesn't do anything that would be helpful other than, pleading with the higher ups in his own government.
Yeah.
When those people are complete and utter racists or whatever.
Well, they're imperialists. We'll say that. We'll use that word.
Thank you. They're complete imperialists, so they're not going to listen to you if you're not saying something that is going to put them more in power than where they are. And if you don't agree with that, you have got to take action and don't make an excuse that, that there's nothing that I can do kind of thing. It's almost like people who understand that there's an issue with factory farming, but cheeseburgers are so good. Like, get the hell out of here with that. They can definitely ship his ass off to wherever the hell he's asking Delenn to send him to, and we ain't got to see you no more.
So, I hear you, and whoo, you touching some stuff. You on some fire. You on fire. We will bookmark this discussion for some episodes later.
Oh,
because you are addressing something that does get addressed in the series.
Yeah, because right now I don't see where, like, when Londo has the discussions with the guy from the shadows, it's only them. I don't think Lanier knows enough to tell anybody about the shadows. Like, oh, he has a friend with ships that's going to help us out. Nobody in their right mind believes or knows, because he doesn't know about the shadows, really. He only knows that he's got this friend that's helping him out. Yeah. He doesn't know the power of the shadows, because it's kind of almost supernatural how he did that. And Lanier wasn't a part of that. He's like, oh, I have to go get Mr. Morton. And after I talk to Mr. Morton, something bad goes wrong. But all I know is he talked to this shady human looking dude. Yeah. And that's all he knows. He has nothing to take to anybody other than, we already know he's scum. Like, if he wanted to go to anybody and be like, he's scum and he's up to something, they'd be like, yeah, so.
Well, and they're like, well, we're all up to something, so.
Right. What does he doesn't have any data to say he's any worse than we already know. I don't think he knows of the shadows at all.
He doesn't really know, but now, I guess, spoiling this part of the episode, when Veer is removed from the station, he has his own agenda. And we won't know about what that is until later. And I'm leaving it very vague because we got to watch it. Like, we just, it's just kind of like, just let it happen. Just let it, just watch it play out. You'll see everything. And the way that Straczynski writes this is really, really cool. It's so cool. So I'm glad that you're seeing this kind of ineffectiveness from Veer. Because essentially he is ineffective sitting right next to Londo. Londo ain't listening to him. Not at all.
Well, it's listening to him. He's just an assistant.
Right. Of course. Londo is an imperialist. He sees these people as beneath him. What turns out to be a good thing is Veer no longer being under his influence. And we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that later. while all that stuff is going on, Garibaldi invites Franklin over for a spaghetti dinner, which I think is hilarious because, like, we do recognize these two are friends, but food is always a thing. And this is where Garibaldi has the difficult conversation where he discusses patterns, vices, and then his issue with alcohol. He's like, you see this glass? He's like, yeah, it's water. And I'll tell you why it's water, because if I drink alcohol, I always drink too much. And then a bunch of bullshit happens, and then I wake up, you know. And Franklin's like, yeah, I'll use stims. Who cares? No big deal. It's not a problem. I can quit whenever I want. Come on. It's not a problem. No big deal. Just one. Come on, man. Just one. Then he kind of twitches and scratches his shoulder. And then he insults Garibaldi, which I thought was funny, but apparently it was bad. He's like, look, it's not my fault you never met a bottle you didn't like.
Yeah, that was harsh. Like, come on.
It's like, my bad. That was an accident. But for real, I can stop whenever I want. Turns out he cannot. How are they still friends after this dinner, by the way?
Not your friend anymore.
And technically, were they really friends? Was he just going for the food? Because they started this whole having dinner together because Garibaldi can cook.
Yo,
is he just going there to eat?
I have this just occurred to me as you said that. Like, is Franklin avoidant?
Oh yeah,
because he's not he is not confronting any of his problems. Dude is not even going home.
Except for that one time where he took the girl home.
Yeah, we only see the inside of Franklin's apartment once, which is probably the only time he's seen it too.
Yeah, because you know when his dad came to, no, did his dad see him in his apartment or that was his office? That was his, one time it was his apartment and one time it was his office.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Franklin is burned out and he just snapped at his friend.
His personal chef.
Always making him Greek and Italian food. Another meeting that's happening. There's Delenn. He's visits Sheridan in a bar, which, man, everybody, these people don't go home. They just hanging out at the bar, I guess. And he's discussing his role as protecting Nafar. I thought it was cool, but this dude walks around with a samurai sword on his back. I don't care what you say. In the future, a sharp object is still a sharp object. They stopped that Drazi from bringing in a ceremonial knife. They won't stop the Narn or the Centauri from bringing weapons on the station. Delenn just basically talks about how he can offer his services to Sheridan as well. And Sheridan's like, well, what would people say if they saw me being escorted by a Narn bodyguard? He's like, this is a man who will live long. We're kind of seeing a contrast between Delenn and Nafar. Nafar is kind of he's a hard-nosed, by the books, but I would say he's more of he's kind of a centrist, a milquetoast centrist. He's part of the oppressed group, but he's like, nah, man, y'all need to chill out so we can set things up the way that we need them. And Delenn is like a straight up warrior. He's like, I will cut you.
And Veer could learn something from him. Hello?
True.
Did Veer meet him?
They don't know.
I don't think so.
To learn something from him. You don't have to be in the position of power to take a stand. And that's just what it is.
It could be also a trauma response because I could imagine living on a planet, growing up on a planet with a bunch of
imperialists.
Imperialists. I was going to name the actual guy he works with, but yeah, it kind of reminds me Lanier himself, the character in his situation, reminds me of when I was in the church as a kid.
Ooh.
And it's even though I have my own beliefs, would you go up against a black grandma in the church and tell them, no, I'm not doing this and I don't think it's right?
At what age?
18. And he's still young. I mean, I had left at 18. And even in my 20s when I was working in the school system, most of my colleagues were those older matriarchs from the Baptist church in the South. And to speak up against these people means your death in metaphorically, basically. Yeah. And in many ways, I think Right? If I saw like many situations where like one of these grandmas are just going off on a child for doing something that a child would do, like putting on their jacket inside out. And I could go to them and be like, that wasn't necessary. That's not right. That's not going to help the child. Guess who gets in trouble too? It doesn't, it's not going to stop her from doing that. In actual, I've done it before, and the kid gets in the worst trouble because I spoke up for them. And then I get in trouble because I spoke up for them. And like the best
How dare you
was to go behind her back and encourage the child to do the thing that they needed to do the right way. But I'm thinking that's stupid because like they're 3 and 4 years old. Of course, like they got the jacket on. I'm proud. But you can't tell them that. And they kind of are imperialists. Those women.
That dynamic that you're bringing up, because I have witnessed like a first grader, and that might not be as young as 3, but like a first grader is still very young and impressionable to tell like a principal when they gave an ultimatum that the child spoke back to the authority figure and was like, I really don't have a choice. Like, the options that you're giving me aren't choices. It's what you want me to do or else. That's it. Mm-hmm. And someone is communicating, to that child to give them that language. To answer your question about if I was 18 and having to stand up to somebody, because I was brought up in the church too, at 18, I still, believed the things that I was being told. I didn't have an alternative perspective at that time. But just as soon as I know something, my convictions are strong, and I don't do a good job of ignoring them. So like when I understood, alcohol bad, and my father's use of alcohol and the danger that it was putting family members in, and, strangers for that matter, just the general public at all. And then my dad was like, Sugar, go get me a beer out the refrigerator. I was still in my teens, and I told him no. It was scary as shit because I come from a place where you can get fucked up. And so, but it was like, whatever. If I'm about to take this L, that's just what it's going to be. But what I'm not going to do is go get you no more beer because I don't agree with what you're doing. It's not okay. So no.
Right.
That's a strength that you have. And everybody doesn't have that strength. For some reason, like, even though I'm very strong in being who I am and being an individual, it's been hard for me to truly be strong in being who I am and being an individual. Like, I'm still going through my closet, picking out stuff that's like, why do I have this? I would never, I don't like it. Or just wearing stuff that I don't like because I knew that it was not going to piss off somebody else that I knew. It's been 20 years. I've been an adult for 20 years, and it's harder for me to get out of that mindset of how I was trained as a child. And that may be that he's in that phase of, he's in that character development linear of, this is how I was raised. This is what my trauma response is to act according to what would satisfy the people who are going to harm me. And not a lot of people can just jump from, I know this is going to harm me, but this is what's right. Not everybody can do that. And that's the reason why therapy is an entire field of study. Because it's different for everybody. Yeah, I mean, some people can be molested by someone and get up the next day and go to talk to their friend and go to the police office that day. And some people can't come to the conclusion that they should tell somebody until like decades later. So it depends on the individual. And I think it's really well written how we actually get to see and not just get a journal from Lanier. We get to see him go through the process of changing his mind and learning how much he does not like this in order to confront it.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of compare, I guess, the situations, because like Veer is being basically told that he's leaving. Like, look, you got another job. We don't need you here. So he doesn't have any autonomy in that. G'Kar, he's being threatened to being replaced because of his actions, right? And I think that kind of mirrors what you were saying, like being in trouble by some of the older folks that were in the church, either because of your actions, also because of the way that they view you. It's like you got to fall in line to make everybody happy or to do the quote unquote right thing, right? So you, like, in both situations, you don't have autonomy at all. You don't get to choose. With G'Kar, they're trying to convince him to leave the station, which is a really fucked up thing because he used to be part of the Kari, and it's like, if he goes back to Narn and turns himself in, he's going to be executed. Like,
Dead.
That's pretty much it.
Yeah. They're pretty much blackmailing him into going despite the fact that he has immunity.
Right. And they're saying that his actions are harming the people. We need to calm things down. G'Kar like blows up and is like, look, it's not my fault. They're the ones who are oppressing us. We need to resist. Like, what do you think is like what you think this is?
Like, great acting, by the way he came out from around that desk. He was like, I didn't blow up our planet.
Right.
Throwing asteroids at it and shit. What? And he was like, oh, my choice of words was unfortunate. Yeah, you about to get fucked up. You better watch your mouth.
Right. And Nafar, he's playing this what they call milquetoast. He's playing this milquetoast liberal role where it's like, we just need to appease them for a little while, and then we can we can strike when we have a chance.
I was so excited when he said that I want to help our people work from inside the system. That shit don't work.
It does not work. No, it don't work. You are so right.
This whole episode is doing the most. Let me be cool.
No, but that's the point. That's the
I think
point.
it's doing a good job of showing the different sides of how humans, in quotes, deal with different issues. It is realistic for people to believe that. It is realistic for whether or not it works, it is how people feel. And it is something that it's going to be a conflict in this situation.
Yeah. And it's taking these different positions, and we see them in real life, but you're exaggerating them so it's clear. The Centauri are oppressors. They don't care about the Narn. They're going to gaslight and be like, oh, we care about them. We want to elevate them. Really, you're just turning these people into your servants. You're stripping and exploiting their planet. And then you need them to stay in their place. You need them to stay beneath you for you to stay.
Come on with it, Damian.
That is what the oppressor does.
The movie player, the musicians, and all the people of color that are in these financial places that could really come back and assist. They don't. They just stay in their lane and they be quiet so that they don't, lose the position of power that they have for themselves.
Or their type of assistance is, do what I did, and if you don't, I'm not going to help. You know what I mean?
But there's only room for a handful of y'all because they have to keep you under their thumb. They have to be able to control you. They can't let too many of us get it. Because when we were building our cities and things by ourselves, they come and burn it and tear it all down.
And so, G'Kar... Oh, sorry. Go ahead. You got it.
There's also the cases where we do have people who are successful, who do things for the community to help out, and we don't hear about it. We only hear about the negative. We only hear about the ones that suck up or the ones that are doing negative. When we got celebrities out here building homes for people and providing them for cheap, and they're using their fame and their billions to build schools and educate people and add to community centers. We don't hear about that. You gotta really tune in to see those things. There are people that are doing good.
Well, those are the G'Kars. And they're the people, they're the ones who mad to like stop doing what they're doing because you're causing too much trouble, bro. You're making us look bad. In this situation with Nafar, Jakar is like, I'm not leaving. And Nafar is like, okay. What was it? Jakar was asking like, who's going to lead the Narn? And Nafar's like, I'll do it myself. And Jakar's like, well, nobody's going to trust you. They're not going to like you. And Nafar's like, that's cool. For people that don't like me, we'll just threaten them like we're the mafia. It's like, what? What?
Yeah.
So it's going to be Narn on Narn violence because they don't like you.
Yeah. How do you think he got his position? How do you think they trusted him to come and speak on, be a diplomat? They, handpicked his brown nose and ass. Oh my God. It's so disgusting to see it happen like so quickly. When it happens in the TV show like this, because it's happened over generations and generations, it's just like, wow, that was fast. But I can only imagine, because I wasn't there when it happened, that there were oppressed people who took this line of thought and were trying to, make nice with the oppressors, for whatever niceties that they were going to receive, which is, yeah. So like they're going to receive some kind of benefit if you stay in line. And it's like, no, you're just going to die comfortable. Well, you'll be comfortable while we're dying.
Yeah.
Hell.
Yeah.
Those things happen on a smaller level too. When you have a narcissist controlling an individual, it could be in a relationship, even someone with good self-esteem and a good family support and stuff can get into a relationship with a narcissist where they have been broken down so much that they don't know how to stand for themselves. This is something that happened globally. Yeah. So there will be people, because the Centauri know what they're doing. Yeah. They know that that's what's going to break down an individual spirit. And this happens to be someone who's in the spirit has been broken down. We don't know what traumas he's seen that he wants to just stop. He wants to do whatever it is.
He's probably being paid handsomely.
Make it stop.
He probably
it could be that. Also, he just also doesn't. He's scared of what the Centauri are going to do.
Yeah, he's put in a position. He's put in a position to defend the Centauri. He kind of like, just connected to what you were saying. They are going to defend the narcissist because they rely on him. It's not a healthy relationship, even though it appears to be beneficial to one or both of the parties involved.
Mm-hmm. So, now, I have seen an example of what you're speaking of, Mel, where someone just, at all costs, just make it stop. And it's like, stopping doesn't fix it. Like,
yeah, we're working on a trauma
isn't. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That not having the fight doesn't resolve the conflict, but because of what you're highlighting there, that is the behavior that they will exhibit, like, just whatever I can do to make it stop, as opposed to fix the problem. Stopping isn't resolution. So yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. So, and I know it's a terrifying place to be, where you really feel like you have no other choice.
Yeah. So at the end of this conversation, Jakar refuses. He's like, I think I need to keep doing what I'm doing. So Franklin, he's experiencing the effects of his burnout. He's in the med lab. He's doing an examination of a Lort patient, or Liort. I don't know how to pronounce that. And he doesn't have a translator, and the guy's just talking. He don't know what he's saying. And he just snaps at the other doctor about what's going on. Ivanova reaches out to him and asks, like, hey, look, we got this probe with all these questions. You're kind of the best doctor in the universe. We need your help with this. And he's all like, fine. But he's upset. He makes the choice to do this exploratory surgery, but he's not using a stim.
All the pressure was on him, and then he decided to use the stim.
Yeah. And it was, you can see him frustrated and angry. And the way I think of it is like, along with whatever his psychological issues, like the cortisol in his body is probably built up like a lot. He's probably a giant ball of stress.
But honestly, I fucked with like the Flash and Franklin. Oh, like each time that he flashed in this episode, I was like, hell yeah. Like that's the proper response in or out of the use of the stims. Why are we down here without a universal translator? And Ivanova, the fuck, why are you calling down here asking me for anything if I don't have this simple tool? I'm going to get you these 600 answers and you give me a stim down here. I was a little irritated that he didn't pull on that resource. There is some person available in this station to have me a universal translator down here within the next 5 minutes. Fucking make it happen.
So it don't make sense, but it's Babylon 5 and not Star Trek. And so my headcanon, I'm sorry, my headcanon is that it's probably a device that costs money, and Earth was like, they don't need that. What, on a diplomatic station? They don't need translators. Okay. So next part of the story, and this is where Veer gets told that he's going to Minbar. Londo's like, it's going to be a good career move for you. It doesn't matter. I don't want to hear it. Veer is giving all these objections like, who's going to handle things in my absence? You won't have my help. Londo is like, this is final. The arrangement's been made. You're going to Minbar. No questions asked. And, we already talked about all of the issues with that. Veer says you're going to be alone. And Londo says, I have always been alone. And I thought this was fascinating because we've seen multiple times where Londo is reaching out to make friends. He tries to befriend Garibaldi. He tries to befriend Lanier. He's trying to befriend all these people. But when it comes to his own countrymen and his assistant, he's like, we're not friends. I don't need you. And he turns him away. Like he's trying to send this dude like far. And I thought this was interesting. This makes me think maybe Londo is not avoidant. Maybe he's just self-destructive because he is lonely. He was trying to befriend Delenn. So maybe it's a thing where he's trying to befriend people in power and positions of influence because he respects
the
power.
Right out of your mouth, and he's not gonna be his friend because he can't do nothing for him.
Right. He was only trying to befriend Delenn because he wanted something from him. And something that narcissists really hate is when someone does not truly agree with them or just suck up to them. And now that he's got this higher status, the person who's not going to just believe in him or trust him, no matter what they do, needs to go. And they will there's a lot of craziness that narcissists do to just belittle or get rid of people who will stand up to them.
Yeah.
And it can get crazy. But this time all he did was give him a new job. That was okay. And consider where he's going though. Right? Yeah. Hopefully he gets to hang out with the religious cats. And that'll be where, because he's been in an environment that taught him to suppress his feelings and only go by what the society norms are. And even though he knows what his feelings are, he's been trained very well to suppress those ideas that, how he wants to hear it. So if he's about to be put into a society where his ideas are valued.
Yes. Well,
which is something he's never been a part of before, which is why he can't speak up the way we would love him to, because he's never learned how. He's still a quote unquote person.
Yeah. So
human.
Yeah. So I thought that was a little interesting thing that stood out, because Londo is always actively working against his own personal best interests. And then when somebody else is trying to be like, look out for him, he's like, nah, I don't need you. After that, we see that Nafar and Talon are walking in Red Sector. And I thought this was wild and dope. Basically, some Narn come at him and they confront him. They're like, look, you are a race traitor. I'm sorry, he called him a blood traitor, but that you know what that means. This is where we are reminded that Narn are marsupial creatures. Where do they keep the babies? Like, where's the pouch?
No houses.
What?
Yeah,
Are they?
they
Yeah, they're marsupials.
I missed that. Wow.
Where are the pouches? I'm not that curious. Oh my God. Okay.
When did the females have the pouches?
This just,
No, actually, that's not.
I don't know.
But, yeah.
But it just, something very terrifying just popped in my mind because you know how Jakar has like multiple Earth women?
Mm-hmm.
So are they acquainted with the pouch?
Oh, we don't know.
Who has Earth women?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There's a whole bunch of them.
Like 4 or 5 at a time, and they didn't like it at all.
I was confused thinking we were talking about what's the name of History Wives.
Mm-mm.
Oh, no. Jakar is a pimp.
Wow.
Like the first and second episode, it's him walking out in his Hugh Hefner robe and like 6 other women, and he takes a meeting with Natoth. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Uh-huh. And she's like, he's busy. And these women come out of his room, and he comes out in the robe.
Yeah, it's wild. But this confrontation is pretty contentious because one Narn mentions that his pouch brother was arrested and linking his release to Jakar's return, basically saying like, we need to return Jakar so we can my brother, my family to be released. Now this reminds me of a lot of tactics used by certain countries that we know of. Like, we've arrested someone, so if you turn over this leader, we'll let them go. We don't think that that's going to happen. They're probably going to torture his brother, the Centauri anyway. This is where Nafar is accused of, like, the Narn are like, hey, the Centauri dropped bombs on us to break our home, but you are going to break our souls. And this is where things get real heated, and Talon is going to draw his weapon. Because as cool as I think Talon is, he's Nafar's bodyguard. So they're about to fight each other. Jakar jumps out and is like, haven't y'all learned anything? Like, y'all keep wanting to fight each other, and that makes no sense. If I got to turn myself in to calm you down and keep peace on this station, then shoot, I'll do it. Like, as long as we're not fighting against each other.
Really?
I won't allow the Centauri to turn us against each other. For a moment, this made me think of the Nelson Mandela situation. I got to re-study it. I know he went to prison, but I'm trying to remember, did he turn himself in, or was he just arrested with other freedom fighters? Whatever the situation is, Jakar has autonomy in this situation, but he feels forced because the thing that he wants the most is being threatened because he's free. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, nah, look, we're not going to spill any Narn blood. He's going to turn himself in. So while all this is going on, we still are dealing with the probe. Sheridan is checking on the progress, and there are 5 questions that remain unanswered. They're looking for like all of the replies. They don't want any errors because they don't want this thing to go off. Corwin says that the Transport Association wants to speak with Sheridan. And I thought this is kind of a little funny part because Sheridan is like, how long do we have? And Ivanova responds, 1 hour. And Sheridan's like, well, make the meeting in 2 hours. That way, if we die, I don't have to go to this goddamn meeting. Jakar's back in his quarters. And I thought this was kind of interesting because he's not wearing his normal garment anymore. Normally he's dressed like a warrior, but he's wearing robes and he looks very like weak. You know what I mean? For some odd reason, Garibaldi is there. Why is Garibaldi everybody's friend?
Because he knows.
Yeah. But he threatened to shoot everybody too. It's weird.
Garibaldi.
And Garibaldi is like, hey, this will most likely result in your death. If you return to Centauri control, Jakar is like, look, I got to do what I got to do. And you can't stop me. And Garibaldi's like, what am I going to do? because Garibaldi can't do anything about anything. We flash to Franklin, and Franklin is talking to Dr. Gonzalez on Earth. I thought this was funny because this goes right in line with what Sunday was saying. The way Franklin deals with it, they're under pressure, and she's like, "Oh, we got all but 2 questions answered," and Franklin's like, "What do you mean you got all but 2? We need all of those answered, all those questions answered." And she's like, "Oh, well, this doctor's on vacation." He's like, "Well, you better go wake him up, get his emergency number, everything or whatever, because you got 250,000 lives up here that could end because of your incompetence." and she's like, "Oh, well, that's rude." He's like, "Oh, I don't give a fuck if it's rude. Like, what? All these people gonna die for your feelings? No, go wake up these people and get us these answers. God damn it, do it right now." Pulls out a stim and he shoots that up. So we get to see that he's irate, he's very frustrated, and he's starting to shoot up. But he's also under a lot of pressure too.
And he could be going to withdraw because we don't know the science behind the stems that he's using 200 years in the future.
Also, Franklin hasn't slept. He should have slept.
Yeah, the brain needs that. Because a stimulant like caffeine just tells your brain that you're not tired. All those other symptoms that you have from fatigue is still there.
Yeah. So basically with all of that's going on, Sheridan doubts the motives of the probe's message. So Sheridan is like, wait a minute, something just doesn't make any sense. Like, why would they blow up people who were not advanced? Why would this blow up if you can't answer the questions? And he poses a theory. He's like, what if this is a berserker? It's designed to eliminate advanced races. So let's say if we answer all of these questions and we prove that we're worthy, they would actually have an incentive to destroy us. And
prove that we're a threat.
Right. It'll prove that we're a threat.
And they gaslight us into proving that we are a possible threat.
Right. And Ivanova's like, well, what do we do? We only have a few minutes left. And Sheridan just waits for a beat and he's like, don't send the transmission. And she's like, oh God, here we go. They sit down and wait for the deadline to pass and nothing happens. And Sheridan's like, I knew it. And he's like, well, we passed the test, but what about the next person? Like this thing can go to another person and offer them the same thing and they won't know any better and they'll transmit it. And he's like, okay, one of the probes that are out there, wait for it to pass the probe and then transmit. So the giant bomb probe, it passes one of their remote probes. They transmit the answers, and that thing, like, it doesn't just explode. This thing ignites. It is the explosion is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. That thing was probably designed to blow up planets.
Yeah, exactly. And they were like, and this is where I'm like, wow, Sheridan really picked up on what the problems were there. I thought he was thinking correctly. His critical thinking skills were awesome. It's like, why would you blow up people who didn't have the answers? Like that makes no sense. It makes sense to blow up people who didn't have the answers. So I thought that was
You're too stupid to live. And that was part of the plot of The Day the World Stood Still.
Oh,
they were like, if y'all don't get your stuff straight, we gonna blow you up. Like, okay, so they can't figure out how to be peaceful. They're not going to be peaceful. Like, I could see, like, oh, that's a punishment. And coming from the culture that it comes from, I could see that. If you're not going to cooperate, then we're just going to destroy you. Which is counterproductive.
Yeah, it made sense to me. It was like, y'all too stupid to even get y'all shit together. Like, if some advanced race came to our planet and saw how we were, like, destroying the ocean, I could see them blowing us up because we stupid.
Oh, God. And correct me if I'm wrong. This episode is where Garibaldi is talking to Ivanova like, hey, I snuck a look at Sheridan's personnel file and saw that he knows how to take an inferior force and make it defeat a superior fighting force. And
he had to look at his record to know that.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing.
His nickname.
Right. Like he's he's done it in the past. But this is what I thought was really weird. Is like, how are you looking at people's information, but you're not sharing any information except with the person who really doesn't need it at all?
That's Garibaldi's power and knowing things that other people don't know. And the only way to keep other people from knowing is by not telling them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty wild.
Or at least from his perspective.
Yeah. So this crisis is averted and it's great. And I thought it was just how wonderful Sheridan is in these situations. It did seem like a gamble because, I mean, he could have been wrong, but he knew he was right. Those neurons be firing. And then as soon as that whole situation is over, he's like, God damn it. Ivanova's like, what? He goes, now I got to go to this transport association meeting.
Like, I'd rather risk being blown up. But this is the second time, this season that he's had a Star Trek make-up shit moment.
I mean,
I just, every time he does that, I have Voltaire going through my head.
I mean, kinda, sorta. Because they have to explain the theory of it at some point, right? And they use Sheridan. Sheridan, he's kind of like us, but he's also like talking to us as the audience. Like, he asks all the right questions, but then he's like, look, we need to catch the audience up on what I know. So here's what I know. It could be this thing or it could be that thing. And I think the way that they use it is really clever because it keeps the audience engaged, but also feeling like they're smart and understand what's happening. Mm-hmm. While at the same time, you're like, as the audience, you don't know, you're not 100% sure that you can rely on Sheridan. It's not a trust thing, it's a reliance thing. So, right. It's pretty clever. I know we're getting a little long in this episode, but we're pretty much done here. So, G'Kar, who took the longest time ever to get ready to leave the station.
She didn't want to leave.
Yeah, he didn't want to leave. He's ready to walk out. He walks out of his quarters. He stopped by Jadok, and he's like, "You can't leave because we really need you here on the station." And G'Kar's like, "Nope, I made my decision. I gotta go." He takes a couple more steps. There's two other Narn stopping him. They're like, "Please, for your own good, please stay." He's like, I can't stay. I gotta go." And then he goes down the steps and around the corner. There's like all the other Narn on the station. It's like 20, 30, 40 of them. And they're all like, "No, you really gotta stay. If you think you gotta leave, you gotta go through us." And then that's where Talon steps up to him and he's like, "No, I'm not letting you leave, son." He pulls out the sword. And G'Kar's like, "I thought we had this discussion before, old man. You don't want to fight me." He's like, "You ain't learned nothing yet." Narn versus Narn. But G'Kar is questioning. He's like, "If I stay here, all of your families are going to be in jeopardy." And Talon tries to stop him. G'Kar refuses. He got the sword out. And Talon confronts G'Kar and Katak, and he's emphasizing like how he has a commitment to fight for freedom. And G'Kar questions like, if anything is more important than safety? And then one of the other Narns respond, their freedom. Their freedom is more important than safety, which is the point of this whole episode. And G'Kar's like pulled a kataf out. And you can't draw one of those without drawing blood on the blade. And Talon is like, "I carry my sword in my hand. You carry your sword in your heart and in your mind. This gives you the advantage." And he basically...
That was so sweet.
Yeah. And he basically says, "We need you here to fight for us." And Jakar's like, okay, I'll stay. And he goes, the Narn are celebrating, and Jakar walks off. Talon, on the other hand, he, knowing tradition and knowing the tradition of the stage of this episode of the series, he pulls the sword into his hand and he cuts his own hand and bleeds on the blade and like draws his blood up the blade, which I thought was, that's why they wear those thick gloves. And yeah, yeah. And it's very interesting because like the overall argument is, do we want the Narn to be safe? Like they've already been decimated for the most part. The planet has been destroyed, but for the few freedom fighters, we want to keep them safe. So should we acquiesce to the Centauri, or do we continue the fight? And Jakar, his whole thing is like, we need to continue to fight, and we don't need to be fighting each other. And the question is always, what is more important to safety? Like, do we sacrifice our freedom for safety, or do we sacrifice our safety for freedom? And their answer is freedom it is.
I love this so much because Jakar was, like Davion tells me all the time, making a decision without including the collective. And that's problematic because the collective there is with, we don't suffer. We've been suffering. What's a little more suffrage, if we're going to get closer to the goal of freedom? We're not going to lay down and, die over this. And Jakar is deciding to sacrifice himself to try to give the comfort to those who aren't even asking for it. And I also really like the guy with the sword. He's doing the kind of work from the inside that I can get down with, because he knows the objective is to get to Babylon 5 so that he can work alongside of the captain and also get there to be with the leader of the resistance, because he's always been with the resistance the whole time. But if I got a cosplay as if I'm actually going to protect this other loser, I'll to get to Babylon 5.
And that was pretty great. And our last little stitch here is Garibaldi and Franklin are talking, where Garibaldi apologizes to Franklin, but it is so messed up because Franklin is like, oh, I got control over it. I went through this whole situation, the surgery and these 600 questions without touching the stuff once. This lying ass.
The lies. Oh, it hurt me so bad to hear him lie. Come on, Franklin. Don't do me like this.
Which is a sign of addiction.
Yep.
Like you will, or a lot of the major symptoms that you will downplay it, or yeah, he's downplaying it. And lying is one of the ways you can downplay it, which was very important for them to put in the story because that is something you need to know about addiction.
Along with Franklin being the best human in the galaxy, in the universe, he knows it. And so he's like, I don't need you in my business, son. I got this.
He's always had to handle things.
Because Garibaldi, how many lives have you saved?
Well, actually, he saved the whole station last episode.
Was it Garibaldi?
The ball. They found the ball. And he figured out from what he said where the ball was.
True. Okay. All right. He did his job. He figured some shit out.
And he knows
for one whole episode
things were being smuggled, so he can let the good stuff that's being smuggled come in and not let the bad stuff just be smuggled.
For one whole episode. Yeah. Yep. All right. So we got that. We get to see Veer leave the station, sadly, with Londo there, and we see credits. So I know there's a lot going on in this episode. I definitely appreciate that they're taking their time with this because it's really good. It's really, really good. And now we've developed another story with Franklin because we know that he had this problem with stims and burnout, but now it's turning into a thing that's affecting his job. And I can't wait until that turns into even more. So,
yeah. They did a really good job of giving us a foundation of all the characters in season 1. And then they built on it with the story in season 3. Now they're going back and rebuilding on top of what we already know of the characters and giving them development outside of what's going on around them. They're being affected by it, which is engaging, because if you just like, here's the characters, let's keep going with it. That's what kids shows do. And it's brilliant for kids shows, but not for adults, not for a drama.
Yeah. So we had a lot of fun with that. I went ahead and cheated and looked at the next couple of episodes, and oh my God, they're digging in. They're talking about some deep stuff that came from, like, we've seen throughout the series, but man, the way that we're confronted with it is going to be great. I think that is a lot, and we should get out of here and let that marinate. I would like to thank everyone for joining us for this episode of Voices in Hyperspace. Be sure to continue the conversation on our YouTube and our Facebook at Voices in Hyperspace. Like, share, follow, and continue the conversation. I'm Legendary Black Lion.
I'm Captain Mel Asylum.
This is A.
And we'll see you out there.
Bye.